On November 13, 2022, roommate DM dialed 911. She could barely get the words out, but she had to, as the other roommate was passed out from shock, unable to report what happened. It was up to only her. Once DM got the words out, police were quickly dispatched to the scene. At 4 p.m., police showed up at the 1122 King Road residence. What they would stumble upon would shock the entire state of Idaho. The house was situated just a short few minutes walk away from the Idaho University campus. The setup of the house is odd. Here's the side view of the house. It was as if someone took the house, cut it in half, and raised one floor above the other, so the floors were mismatched. They did this to save space, as the ground the house was built on was a hill. The house has 3 floors, 6 rooms, and 6 roommates. The police went in, via the front entrance of the first floor. One of the 2 surviving roommates, BF, lived on the first floor. They made their way up the stairs to the second floor. There are 2 rooms on the second floor. Roommate DM lived in one of the rooms and the other room belonged to Xena. Police found 2 bodies in Xena Kernodle's room. One was Xena, and the other was that of her boyfriend Ethan Chapin. Ethan technically didn't live in the 1122 King Road residence, but since he was spending so much time with Xena, 1122 King Road became his home too. Xena was a very athletic person. She did gymnastics, tracks, soccer, and more. She also loved hiking and camping. She graduated high school in 2020, and enrolled in the University of Idaho to study marketing. Xena was also a very sociable person, so, when the campus reopened, she was happy to go out and meet people. Xena was really close to her sister, who often joked about how she never had a boyfriend, until, in the spring of 2022, Xena finally met someone special. Which brings us to Ethan. Ethan was born a triplet. He was originally from Seattle. He was the oldest. He had a sister and a brother, both of whom were heartbroken by Ethan's death. Ethan, very much like Xena, was a very sport-oriented person. Both families were happy when the couple got together. Ethan was studying tourism management and recreational sports at the time of his death. Both Xena and Ethan had wounds from what looked like a thin-bladed weapon. On the 3rd floor, there are 2 rooms. One room was Kaylee Goncalves's, and the other Madison Mogen's. Investigators found a dog in Kaylee's room. Kaylee and her ex-boyfriend, Jack Ducour, shared the dog, Murphy. The room where the dog was kept was closed, perhaps to prevent the dog from getting out and interfering with the attack. In the other room, Madison's room, investigators found 2 female bodies. The affidavit read, "As I entered this bedroom, I could see 2 females in the single bed, in the room. Both Goncalves and Mogen were deceased, with visible stab wounds. Both Madison and Kaylee sustained heavy injuries, and a knife sheath was found resting on Madison's right side. It was noted that Kaylee had a lot more puncture wounds, compared to the other 3 victims. This is crucial, we'll get into that. Kaylee was a middle child of a large family. Born in California, her family moved to Idaho when Kaylee was a toddler. She got along with everyone, friendly and easygoing. Kaylee originally wanted to become a teacher when she went to get her degree at the University of Idaho. However, later on, she decided to pursue something else instead. By November 2022, Kaylee was set to graduate early, as she had all the credits she needed to graduate. Kaylee had an IT job lined up, and has already moved out on the day of the murder. Kaylee had a bright future ahead of her. The only reason Kaylee returned that day was so that she could show Madison the new Range Rover she just bought. Madison, on the other hand, was also very lovable. She was born in Oregon, and moved to Idaho when she was a toddler. Madison was smart, and went to the University of Idaho for marketing. Madison did so well in school that she was on the dean's list every semester. Madison loved her major and had a job as a waitress at a Greek restaurant where Xena also worked. Madison had a way of making people laugh. She was described as funny by her boyfriend. Sadly, Madison was an only child, and her death was especially hard on her parents. When Madison and Kaylee both moved to Idaho in 6th grade, they met each other, and became inseparable. Both families felt like they unwittingly adopted a daughter. They would go on vacation with each other's families, do homework together. They were as close as sisters could be. Later on, they went to the same high school together, applied to the same college, got into the same college, and rented the same house together. Once the news broke of what tragedy took place, parents drove miles to pick up their kids. Right now, most students at the University of Idaho attend lectures online. For those who still reside in the Idaho town, fear emanates the air. Barely anyone go out. The case got national and international attention. Thousands of leads were followed up, as investigators tried to narrow down a suspect. Here's what we know. On November 12, All 6 roommates were out until the early morning of November 13. Xena and Ethan were at a fraternity party. Madison and Kaylee were at the corner club. The other 2 roommates, DM and BF, were out separately. Food truck livestream captured Madison and Kaylee purchasing food, after leaving the bar at around 1:30 a.m. The food truck was called the Grub Trucker, and they had a live stream on that night. In the live stream, you could see a guy looking at the girls from behind. It's believed that the man came to the food truck with the girls, but you don't see him interacting with the girls throughout the entire time at the food truck. The man reportedly told another guy in the crowd that he was with the girls, despite the girls not acknowledging him. Kaylee and Madison got in a cab right after, and although the guy did look suspicious, he was quickly ruled out by the police. He was likely just somebody who met the girls at the club and didn't want to leave after the interaction was over, so he followed the girls to the food truck. Another difficulty the investigators faced when conducting interviews was that the house was a party house. Let's put it like that. There were frequent parties going on, at all hours of the day. People were in and out of the residence, even if they didn't know the renters personally. Neighbors would sometimes complain about the noise to the police. Here's footage of the police arriving on the scene after a noise complaint. The police were called to the residence multiple times due to noise complaints, and in one of those instances, the girls were not even home. In fact, one of the partygoers put the police on the phone with either Kaylee or Madison, both of whom were out. They had left the house to the partygoers, while they went elsewhere. If you're not familiar with American college life, this does not apply to every college and university, but sometimes kids leave their friends in charge of the house, who in turn would leave someone else in charge of the house, and it was all okay. People would be in and out of the residence, and no one would lock the door. It may sound strange, but that's how much trust college kids place in strangers. Moscow, Idaho, was a very safe small town, with a population of about 25,000. Everyone is connected. The town caters to college kids, and most people who live there work at, study at, or once studied at the University of Idaho. Since the house was a party house, it had the possibility that, if anyone was convicted, the defense could argue that he or she had been to the house before, hence why their DNA was left at the scene. There was even a rumor going around that a professor was responsible for the heinous crime. The person who accused the professor has since been sued by the professor. Next, the investigators followed up on the lead that Kaylee reportedly had a stalker. One incident took place when Kaylee was entering a club or a bar, and 2 men followed her in there, but those suspects were later ruled out by the homicide detectives. But it's worth wondering, were those 2 men the same stalker Kaylee was referring to, or was it someone else? How about the cab driver who took the girls home? The cab driver, while remaining unnamed, has been ruled out as well. As internet sleuths were piling on the theories, on December 30, 2022, at 3 a.m., the police swarmed a house in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania. The residents did not give up too much of a fight, and they made an arrest. The person they arrested was Bryan Kohberger. The house they raided belonged to Bryan's parents. Bryan was spending the holiday with his parents at the time of his arrest. What no one knew at the time was that the police had been staking out Bryan's parents' house for a few days, and they had their eyes set on Bryan for almost the entire length of the investigation. Before they made an arrest, they first got their hands on the trash outside of the Kohberger home. The DNA found in the trash was identified as belonging to Kohberger's father. The Y chromosome is passed down from father to son, and the Y chromosome from the Kohberger trash was a match to the DNA sample found on the sheath left at the crime scene. This means the perpetrator was a male who shared the same Y chromosome as Kohberger's father. Given other details we'll reveal later, investigators had a strong hunch that the perpetrator was Bryan Kohberger. The DNA sample was retrieved from the sheath of a knife found in Madison's room. The DNA was gathered from the bottom snap of the sheath. So, who is Bryan Kohberger? Kohberger was born in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania, on November 21, 1994, and grew up there. He obtained an associate psychology degree at Northampton Community College. He worked as a part-time security officer for a while, before deciding to return to pursue higher education. At the time of his arrest, Bryan Kohberger was a PhD student, studying criminology at Washington State University. He was also a teaching assistant at the school. Crucially, he lived just 9 miles from the crime scene, at the Washington State University campus. Right before the holiday, Bryan made the drive from Washington State University, where he was living, to Albrightsville, Pennsylvania, with his father. This is odd, because he could have just flown. That would have been much faster and less time-consuming. Pennsylvania was on the other side of the country. It was also oddly coincidental that police were on the lookout for a 2013 to 2015 white Hyundai Elantra, spotted near the crime scene, around the time of the murder, when Bryan decided to drive his car all the way back to Pennsylvania. If you haven't figured it out by now, a white Hyundai Elantra was taken in for forensic analysis when Bryan was arrested. Some people suspected that Kohberger's father was helping his son cover up the crime. But take a look at this footage of police pulling Kohberger over for tailgating. Kohberger's father did not hesitate to give up details of where they were going, whereas Bryan kept muttering the words, Thai food, in an attempt to mislead the police of where they were heading. Let's take a look at the clip. Watch how Kohberger reacted when his father started revealing details of where they came from and where they are going next.
Hello.
How you doing?
How y'all doing today? Good, good. Take a look at your driver's license real quick if I could. See, he's right up on that van, man. You right up on the back end of that van. Pulled you over for tailgating. Is this your car? Okay. Cool. Where are you headed?
Well, we're coming from WSU, and
So you're coming from Washington State University?
yeah.
And you're going where? Oh.
We're going to be going to Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay.
Pocono Mountains. Yeah. So we're slightly punchy.
If you missed it, Kohberger was interrupted by his father, who corrected his son by saying that they just came from WSU, Washington State's University, and were heading to Pennsylvania. His father was unfazed, but Kohberger shot his father a glare.
Where are you headed?
Well, we're coming from WSU. Well, we're coming from WSU.
This may have been what Madison, Kaylee, Xena, and Ethan were seeing as they were being attacked. The investigators found Bryan throwing garbage into his neighbor's trash at 4 a.m. after he arrived home in Pennsylvania. The content in the garbage bag contained material that is linked to the knife sheath left behind. Not only that, Bryan's cell phone pinged near the house of the crime scene in the minutes leading up to the attack. Security footage from nearby also captured a white car speeding past around the time of the crime. The car was similar to Bryan's car. Bryan Kohberger has not been convicted yet, so let's not assume anything. But you need to admit, that's a lot of coincidences. Here's what most likely happened according to internet sleuths. But before we get into it, it'll be helpful for us to know the layout of the house. Here's a 3D reconstruction of the house. This person did an amazing job at reconstructing the layout of the house. I'll leave the link in the description. Once you enter the house from the front entrance, you can see the stair on the left side. There are 2 rooms down here. BF lives on the first floor. On the second floor, there are 2 rooms, Xena's room and DM's room. Down this hallway is Xena's room. Xena was found on the floor, and Ethan may have been found on the bed. DM's room is the closest room near the kitchen. Here is the kitchen. Notice the sliding door. They found a shoe print here. The stairs to the 3rd floor is next to DM's room. Kaylee and Madison's rooms are on the 3rd floor. Murphy the dog was found in Kaylee's room. Madison's room is here. Here's what most likely took place when we piece all the clues together. But, remember, not everything is confirmed yet. At 4 a.m., according to the affidavit, Xena received her DoorDash order. At 4:04 a.m., a white Elantra was recorded parked at 500 Queen Road. If you look at it from Google Maps, it's just 30 feet away, and would take a minute to walk from one point to another. It's believed that the killer entered via the 2nd floor sliding glass door. It was a bit after 4 a.m. that DM reported hearing what sounded like Kaylee playing with her dog in her room. Kaylee may have been the intended target, since the killer would need to pass by DM's room in order to go to the third floor, where Kaylee and Madison's rooms were. Kaylee also sustained a lot more injury than Madison. The killer went for Kaylee's room first, but upon realizing she wasn't there, and startling the dog, which was why the noise of Murphy the dog occurred at around this time, he went searching for Kaylee in Madison's room. Then, DM reported that she heard someone said, "There's someone here." It may have been Kaylee or Madison. At this point, she went to open her door for the first time. She didn't see anyone and closed her door again. It's likely as DM was on alert. The attack was taking place right above her head. At 4:12 a.m. Xena TikTok was active. It's unknown whether Xena was on TikTok then, or did she open her phone and left it running as she was doing something else. Perhaps picking up her DoorDash order. Right around this time, DM said she heard someone crying, and a male voice saying, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." The crying may have been Xena. It's unknown why she was crying. Had she ran into the killer, noticed the knife and the blood, got scared, and cried? Why did the male voice said, "It's okay, I'm going to help you"? Perhaps he was pretending to have just survived an attack upstairs, and was pretending to help Xena by leading her to safety? DM opened her door for the second time to check, but there was no one there. It's possible that Xena was already taken to her room at the time. At 4:17 a.m., the neighbor's security audio picked up sounds of whimpering, dog barking, and a loud thud. We know Xena was found on the floor, so perhaps the loud thud was Xena hitting the floor, and the whimpering may have been an injured Xena, or a horrified Xena, as she watched Ethan getting attacked. DM, upon hearing the same thing, opened her door for the third time. That's when she came face to face with the killer. She said that she saw a male figure, dressed in black, about 5'10" or taller, walking towards her, and then out the sliding glass door. We don't know whether the killer noticed DM, or why he didn't attack DM, but it was possible that the killer didn't plan on attacking Madison, Xena, and Ethan, until they got in his way. Madison was in the same room as Kaylee, and the killer didn't want Madison alive to identify him. Then, he ran into Xena and had to silence her and her boyfriend, Ethan. By the time the killer was done with Xena and Ethan, the noise would have been too loud to risk staying in the house for longer. At roughly 4:20 a.m., a white car was spotted speeding out of the area. It would take 8 hours for DM to call the police, as she was in shock. Many were suspicious that she was involved, since it took her so long to report the crime. But when a person enters a state of shock, the shock could last hours, days, or even weeks. It's the brain's attempt at protecting itself from recognizing the trauma of what happened. Other survivors of similar incidents have also reportedly done the same thing. One woman witnessed her roommate's attack and went back to sleep. She only woke up to the horror of realizing what took place. Please do not judge DM for what she could have done. She is still a victim of this horrific incident, and unless you're faced with the same thing, you won't know what you would do. So now that we've established what likely took place, let's take a closer look at Bryan Kohberger as a person. Bryan's high school friends commented that he was bullied in his childhood for being socially awkward. Girls would throw empty bottles at him. He was a bit heavy as well, up until he got to his senior year of high school, when he suddenly lost a lot of weight and became a bully himself. Bryan was hooked on drugs in high school, but he later got cleaned. Bryan's family life was no better. He apparently made his aunt and uncle buy new pots and pans, as he refused to eat any of the food cooked from pots and pans that had meat in it at some point. However, Bryan's immediate family, including his mother, father, and sister, has publicly stated that they are in full support of him and believe he was framed. Students taught by Bryan also had something to say. They said that Bryan would find the most confusing way to explain something. He wanted to make sure that you know he is smart. From all the accounts of people who knew Bryan, it seemed that Bryan has a quite difficult personality, although quite intelligent. He was not very easy to get along, and he's very particular about the way things are done. So why did Kohberger do what he did? This article may shed some lights on Bryan's motives. Kim Kenley went to school with Kohberger. She apparently wasn't very nice when rejecting Kohberger. The article revealed that the popular girls, quote, tortured him. There's no details on what that means, but another source stated that the girls would throw empty bottles at him. Maybe worse things were done to him that were not stated. Kohberger was made fun of by mostly girls in middle school. They treated him horribly. He would leave love notes in girls' lockers only to get humiliated in front of the whole school. A former classmate stated, "It's interesting to me that the girls he's accused of killing were nice looking and seemingly popular, much like the ones that made fun of him throughout his childhood." Perhaps Kohberger took out his long-held anger on the girls. However, he seemed to have a particular hatred towards Kaylee, so it's also possible that he knew Kaylee from somewhere, and she rejected his advances. Something may have set him off, when his mental state was already not very good. While I was editing this video, an update has been made. Bryan Kohberger, apparently, followed Kaylee, Madison, and Xena on Instagram, and even liked a few of their pictures. He also had sent a few messages to Kaylee that went unanswered. It's unclear whether Bryan has met the girls in person before, or whether the girls knew him. Bryan may have also been to the house before, because he went straight to the 3rd floor, skipping DM's room. So what will happen next? Well, Idaho is a death penalty state, which means Kohberger could potentially receive life in prison, or the death penalty, if he is convicted of the crime. The case is still ongoing. If you want to keep up with the updates, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on bell notifications. Thanks for watching. If you like mystery, check out this video next. I'll see you there.